In 2025, the year of the snake, I read 78 books. In this video, I'm going to go through the highlights, the rereads, the DNFs, and the stats no one asked for, but I'm giving them to you anyway. My name is Jim. This is my channel, Books, Reading and Stuff. I've made some notes, so you might see me looking down from time to time because I can't remember all the stats or the highlights and I don't want to forget anything. 78 books was more than last year, which was 73. Not as much as 2023, where I read 100 books, but I found that quite stressful, particularly in December when I was trying to read 13 books to hit the 100 books total. It's my target for this year, as for last year, is 72, so I surpassed that title, although the number of books is not as important as the quality of the books. Reading is not a competitive sport, and also a book is not a standard unit. This is a book. This is a book. But these are not equivalent. If you read 100 like this or 100 like this, it's a very different reading task. The highlight of 2025 for me was finally finishing all of Dickens' completed novels, all 14 of them, and I made a video about that. I'll link it here, where I rank all of Dickens' novels. The last one I read was Nicholas Nickleby, but this is not my favourite. The best books I read, I made a video of my top 3 books, which I'll link here. The best books were A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, and The Martian by Andy Weir. I should also put in a couple of honourable mentions. The Perfect Place to Die by Inga Wolf, which was a Danish noir, and it was also, of the books I read, the top rated one on Goodreads with over 4.6 stars on average. And also Irina Shapiro's Tate and Bell series. I've read 6 of the 7 books now, and they've all been 5-star reads for me. These are Victorian murder mysteries set in London, and they're very good. The top 3 were all in the fantasy or science fiction realm, but I read many other genres. I'm an eclectic reader. I read, in addition to fantasy and sci-fi, I read historical fiction, which is my comfort zone, crime, horror, comedy, psychological thrillers, classics, western, contemporary romance, and I even tried a romantasy. This was The Last Leviathan by Anacostia Miller, and I quite enjoyed it. And I won't be reading a lot of romantasy. I don't think it's really a genre for me, but I enjoyed The Last Leviathan. There were lots of pirates and various hijinks. Rereads, I only reread 2 books. One was Pride and Prejudice, which I read for Jane Austen July. It's the first of Jane Austen's books that I've reread, and I think it's her best, although I do have a soft spot for Emma. I also reread Waystation by Clifford D. Seamack, which I first read as a teenager and had forgotten most of the plot, and I still enjoyed it many, many years later. I want to do more rereading. I've got a few books I want to reread, like My Name is Red by Orhan Pamuk, the Turkish Nobel laureate. Also Donna Tartt's The Secret History. I read this when it came out back in the 90s, I think. And there's a few others I want to reread, like David Copperfield. As for DNFing, I think DNFing is healthy. If you're not enjoying a book, you can put it down and start something else. Although I only DNF'd 3 books. These were Under the Volcano by Malcolm Lowry, which is about an alcoholic consul in Mexico just before the Second World War, which really wasn't my scene. I asked ChatGPT to recommend some books for me, and that was one it recommended. ChatGPT doesn't really know my tastes. I also DNF'd The Bicentennial Man. I read the first couple of stories. It's by Isaac Asimov, and they didn't really grab me, so DNFed that. And famously, I DNFed Verity by Colleen Hoover. I wanted to try a Colleen Hoover because she's such a popular author, but this, no thank you. There are a couple of books that are not official DNFs. I put them on pause. Neil Stephenson's Cryptonomicon. You might have seen me struggling through this in the year. I'm on page 346 of 910 pages. I'll put this on pause. I think I'll try it again in March, for March the Mammoths. I'm not convinced that I'll get through it, but I'm not convinced I'll not get through it either. I'm not sure about this. Also, J.G. Ballard, The Disaster Area. I'm not sure if this could count as a DNF. I read the first 6 stories of 9. It's 9 short stories in here. And onto some more self-indulgent statistics. This is a very self-indulgent video. If you've been watching so far, thank you. The longest book I read in 2025 was The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann, which was written about 100 years ago, set in a sanatorium in Switzerland. Not much happens in it, but there's a lot of philosophical ranting, and it was an enjoyable book, but I won't be reading it again. The shortest book I read was The Landlady by Roald Dahl, which is just 17 pages. As I said, books are not a standard unit, and this would really qualify as a short story, but you can count it as a book on Goodreads. I'm still using Goodreads. I did try Fable and Storygraph, but I'm familiar with Goodreads. I know how it works, and that's the one where I continue to track what I'm reading. My average rating on Goodreads this year was 4.3, which is quite high, because overall my average rating on Goodreads is 3.86. This could either mean I'm becoming more generous with books, or I have a better idea of the books I will like, and I'm picking those up rather than trudging through books that are just okay. Author repeats. Not many author repeats. In 2021, I didn't read the same author twice. I like to read lots of different authors, lots of new authors. There are only 4 authors I read more than one book of in 2025. These were Becky Chambers. I read 2 books by her, and as I said, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet was my favourite book of the year, and I want to read more of her in the future. Inga Wolf, Danish writer who writes noir books. I read 3 of hers. Charles Dickens, yes, I finished 3 Charles Dickens books. Nicholas Nickleby. I also finished Barnaby Rudge back in March, and I read The Signalman, which is, again, it's a short story, but that's 3 Dickens. And the author I read the most of was Irina Shapiro. I read 5 of her books. 4 were Victorian murder mysteries. 1 was a psychological thriller. I preferred the Victorian murder mysteries. But I did review the psychological thriller, which comes out today, The Invite, and I can link to my 1-minute review of that here. As for the channel, the stats are down on from 2024 to 2025. My most viewed video in 2025 was my 1-minute review of Master and Margarita, which I put out in 2022, but it still got over 1,000 views from just 2025. My most popular video for 2025 was my 1-minute review of Imperium, but that's only got 470 views, which is not a lot. But I find the 1-minute reviews, they don't get a lot of views out of the starting gate, but some of them can go on to accrue lots of views over time. 13 of my 1-minute reviews have now got over 1,000 views, including the Master and Margarita, which has well over 2,000 views. My most successful recent video by a long way was my ranking of Dickens books, which has had 450 views, which equates to about 35 hours of watch time, because it was a longer video than I usually make. Most of my videos are quite short, particularly the 1 minute videos. They're just 1 minute, as the title might suggest. I also started putting out these What Are You Reading Wednesday. I even got the cheap knockoff doll of Wednesday Addams. What Are You Reading Wednesday is just a weekly catch-up of what I'm reading, and I want to know what you're reading. You can let me know in the comments of this video what you're reading, but I'll be putting out a What Are You Reading Wednesday tomorrow. So that was my bookish 2025. Let me know about your bookish 2025. What were the best books you read? What were the longest books you read? If you got a channel, how your channel did in 2025. This one didn't do so well. And if you enjoyed the video, you can give it a thumbs up. This will help with that YouTube algorithm, which I still don't know how to fix. And I will see you on the next video. Goodbye.